I would urge everyone in the House today to provide for this rights-based agenda and support this motion and make this a watershed day in the pursuit of rights for and by disabled people in Ireland. Thank you. I worked with the Independent Living Movement of Ireland to draft a motion calling for the Dáil to legislate to provide for the establishment of a Commissioner for Independent Living within the Department of Social Protection, tasked with various functions which would oversee the realisation of the right to a personal assistance service over time with a sustainable and cost-effective manner. The flexibility of this motion is not for the ease of government to walk away from its commitments, but for all of us here in this House to work together to legislate for the establishment of an office tasked with providing a roadmap to the development of a personal assistance service fit for purpose and which puts centre stage the right to live independently and as equals in society regardless of disability for disabled people. To clarify, the motion is calling for the establishment of a Commission for Independent Living with limited costs imposed on the Exchequer tasked with the following functions. To consult with a disabled persons organisation as defined by the UN's CRPD to devise a universally accepted definition of the personal assistance service in Ireland and address the chronic lack of understanding of the term personal assistance service, which has led to inconsistencies in standards and quality of service provision across all HSE areas. Facilitate the separation of the personal assistance service from home help hours and home care and develop a strategy to oversee the transition of the personal assistance service to come under the remit of the Department of Social Protection from the Department of Health, recognising personal assistance not as a health issue but as a public service under the purview of the Commissioner for Independent Living. To seek to end the practice of assigning home help hours to disabled people instead of a personal assistance service. To ensure individuals do not end up with a service that does not support independent living as per the personal assistance model of service and remove the risk of individuals being removed from waiting lists for personal assistance services when accepting home help hours instead. To establish a roadmap towards the provision of ring-fenced funding for personal assistance services to facilitate the continued investment of independent living supports in Ireland. To introduce a single standard assessment of need across all HSE CHO areas. This must include the provision and support for independent assessment of need as per the Disability Act 2005 and the creation of systems that allow for portability of services across CHO areas, meeting the social, personal and employment needs of those who avail of the personal assistance service with no bureaucratic barriers. To establish that all those who could benefit are made aware of the personal assistance service in order that those who wish to live their lives independently can access the necessary supports to do so. Ensure that policy regarding independent living includes a comprehensive assessment of the individual's needs to determine the amount of personal assistance an individual will receive in order that they live a full and active lives in education, employment and society. I think it would do us some good to acknowledge that it's society that disables a person, not the disability itself. We must look at disability from the perspective of those who have one if we are to address the barriers facing disabled people in our society. We must look at ourselves to see what barriers we have created, how these have affected disabled people and how we can dismantle them as architects of this unequal society. Only then can disabled people have more independence, choice and control over their lives, to live independently the way we do as able-bodied individuals, which we so often take for granted. For that reason, I am using the preferred term disabled people, for which I know has confused some people. It is a term developed by the disabled people that recognises the social model of disability and acknowledges that it's those barriers we have put in place that have prevented disabled people from living full and active lives as equals in our society. The motion presented here today was written and developed by disabled people, and it is their view which must be at the forefront of all contributions and debates we will be having this evening, and I would like to thank all contributors in advance for their contributions. In March 2018, Ireland formally ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the CRPD. Under Article 19 of the CRPD, disabled people have the right to live in the community and have access to a range of in-home and other supports, including personal assistance, to support this. Pioneered by the Centre for Independent Living, the Personal Assistance Service involves the employment of personal assistance by people with physical disabilities to enable them to live life as independently as possible. The philosophy of independent living that underpins the personal assistance service is about promoting choice and independence for the person with a disability, known as the leader. With a personal assistance service, disabled people are in control and direct the PA to carry out the tasks both inside and outside the home, including personal care, domestic duties, assisting in day-to-day tasks such as shopping, support in the workplace or socialising. While a personal assistance service does currently exist in Ireland, it is chronically underfunded, inconsistent and incomplete, restricting the lives of many disabled people and the desire for independent living. Disabled people have been witness to the incremental destruction of medical services for people with disabilities through years of austerity cuts, the ongoing recruitment and retention crisis in the HSE, not to mention the non-embargo embargo, and as a gradual shift away from statutory provision of services towards an outsourcing model of service provision in this country. Many thousands of people in Ireland have access to a personal assistance service, yet many more remain without it. It is useful to point out that only 0.3% of disabled people get it as a personal assistance service. For those who do get it, the service remains limited and access is restricted due to lack of funding. According to the Disability Federation of Ireland, there has been no additional funding for PA services since 2008, and people who are currently on waiting lists must wait for a person to die before they can get any new hours. Those hours, in turn, are often spread across a number of different people, thinly applying the service to recipients. Between 2010 and 2017, there has been a drop in over 25% in the numbers in receipt of a PA service and home supports combined. According to the HSE, in 2017, 1.51 million service hours were delivered to 2,470 people. However, 84.4% of all leaders in receipt of personal assistance service received less than 3 hours per day on average, with 44.4% of leaders in receipt of 42 minutes per day on average, despite disability being a 24-hour affair. It is clear that anyone who receives an average of 42 minutes per day is not going to be able to live independently, access education or employment, or become involved in a meaningful social engagement. Disabled people with reduced services of this nature will become trapped in their own homes without a chance to interact and will be prone to isolation and depression. Currently, only 5% of the HSE's disability budget has gone on personal assistance and home support services. Meanwhile, 85% of the budget is spent on residential day services. This needs to be flipped on its head. It's costing the state more to keep someone in an institution as opposed to providing a personal assistance service so disabled people can work and engage in our society. Research from Sweden shows that the cost of a replacement for an individual with extensive functional impairments in a group home often exceed the cost of personal assistance, not taking into account the personal benefits for disabled person alone to participate in society with greater flexibility and freedom of choice. There are huge constraints on the current personal assistance service in this country. Delivering services is often repressive and tied to the medical model approach as opposed to on a needs basis. Those in need of PA support often find the application process problematic, as there is no standardised procedure, and those in receipt of this support do not have any security regarding the continuation or extent of the service due to lack of legislative protection. A chronic lack of understanding of the term personal assistance service is pervasive in the HSE and has led to inconsistencies in the standards and quality of service provision across all HSE areas. For instance, the practice of assigning home help hours to disabled people instead of a PA service still continues today. Furthermore, individuals are also at risk of being removed from waiting lists for PA services when they accept home help hours. PA services are only offered during certain hours or on a rigid schedule or time slots of less than an hour. These restrictions mean that the person only receives enough time to get up, get washed and dressed, which is in essence a home support service, not a service that supports and enables independent living. As far back as 1996, it was identified that an average need for 10 hours of PA service per person per week could only respond to essential personal care needs, not quality of life requirements, and it would certainly not enable full active participation in the community. 30 years on, and the independent living movement in Ireland continues to strive for full independent living on behalf of disabled people, advocating for choice and control of their lives and full participation in society as equal citizens. A right to personal assistance service for disabled people is a fundamental to achieving that vision. However, currently there is no right to personal assistance in this country. I would urge everyone in the House today to provide for this rights-based agenda and support this motion and make this a watershed day in the pursuit of rights for and by disabled people in Ireland. Thank you.